we're here, we're getting started. Today we are talking about mindset and intention. Actually, there's another name for intention that I have, but I just didn't want to put it out there yet. Last week, just for anybody who was not there last week, we talked just in general about human-to-human sales acumen and why it's so important in our world today, primarily because, actually, let's look at some key takeaways. Why don't we, before I start, Gavin? I don't know if y'all saw my little waiting room slides. It basically, one of them said that I don't know who's on unless you say something in the chat, which is really cruel. All right, let's see. Okay, now hopefully you can see my screen. I was able to tell before. Oh, LinkedIn, thank you for nothing. Interesting. I'm really sorry, I don't understand. Mention that I have, but I just didn't want to put it out there yet. See the echo. Okay, I turned it off. It closed that screen where my chat is. We're good. We are good for real. Hopefully you can now see my screen, or my slide screen. Yep, looks like it's working. Awesome. So I'm just going to kick this in a slideshow. I don't love doing slides, but there's a lot of concepts today. So I wanted to just kind of have those handy. And then I'll try to toggle back and forth so that I'm just actually having a conversation with you. I do not love the share slides business, but we're going to take a look. Also, I don't trust myself to do a thorough job on definitions, if I'm honest. Okay. Let's see. All right. Okay. Hopefully y'all can see me. I cannot see the chat right now, however, which is really annoying. All right. We're going to do this. Okay. We're going to do, I wonder which live it's going to be where this is like flawless. Not today. I'm opening it up on my phone now so that I can see the chat. Oh, I see David's in. Hey, David. In case anybody's in chat, I don't want to miss it today. Colleen. Okay. Yay. Okay. Yay, David. Hi, Linda. All right, here we are. So first things first, like I already said, I got ahead of my slides. Don't be shy. Like chime in the chat, right? I feel it's really strange to kind of just talk out loud to yourself. That's never going to be easy for me. So help a girl out, comment, chime in, tell me I'm wrong, tell me to slow down, whatever it is. That way I know you're here. And like I said, I don't know that you're here unless you say something in the chat. And it's hard to be human to human if you don't even know who the humans are that you're talking to. Anyway, that's another story for another time. We are going to go right into the recap. Sure we are. Here we go. So here's our recap. I just picked a few of the key points. The replay is out there. Buyers want humans involved. So we've been hearing people beating a drum for, gosh, it's been years now saying that, buyers are going to prefer self-serve. They're not going to want to engage a salesperson. They don't want to talk to a human. Well, that's kind of been rolled back. What we're seeing now is that buyers do want to have a human involved, specifically to help them make the call because they're so overwhelmed with all the information and data and everything that they're getting from AI. AI, speaking of, and the rigid sales methodologies out there, what's happening is those are actually helping salespeople become more standard, right, and more efficient. But that's also creating salespeople to be very same. So if the same people are asking the same methodology questions, or if the same people are, trying to go through the different stages and the toll gates, it's going to be really the same. And the challenge with that is if you don't make yourself different within the process, you're kind of going to end up robotizing yourself. I made that up. Because if you're doing things that can be rote and can be copied and can be the same, there's really no value that you're bringing as a human to that. So that's like something to just always keep in mind. And then human-to-human sales acumen, of course, that's what we're talking about today. That protects you. So that is the skill set that helps you ensure that even when you might forget because the methodology told you to do a checklist, you will remember that you have to be bringing that humanity and kind of check yourself and make sure that you are. So if you do that, you can continue to differentiate, because the humans that are seeking out sellers now, that's what they need. They've had it with the tech by the time they get to you. And so they want that human touch. All right. Let me just check my chat here. Hi, Lupe. Hey, Pam. Cool. All right. So let's see. What are you all seeing? There we go. All right. So this is one of those where it's a big fat definition, but I'm just going to break it down for you. Really, human to human sales acumen, it is about a mindset and a skill set, and just kind of how you go approach all of your buyers, right? The acumen piece is being really good at a specific set of skills. Now, are there like a ton of human to human skills that I could tell you about? Yeah, there are. But what I've done is I've distilled from a lot of data and a lot of research of my own with my own salespeople that I've worked with. Like, what are the ones that are the most important and the most that I'm not seeing much out there? And that's what we're going to focus on. But be aware, this is one of those things where there's tons of different skills that you can adopt along the way. You'll hear many different ones if you're doing any reading out there. But what I've done, and hopefully this is a service to you, is like distill it, make it real, and then we'll walk through that, okay? Mindset is the important part. Like mindset, one of the things I've always been taught is that mindset, like your thought process precedes your actions, right? Which is true. The trick is, though, in between your thought and your actions, there's like this moment to choose. Viktor Frankl. We need to make sure that we're choosing in that moment to do the thing that has the humanity in it. So regardless of what this definition says, you're going to meet the moment with humanity. And when you do that, you can help bring confidence to your buyer, which is what they're starved for right now. I mean, look, executives don't mess around when it comes to their livelihood. They're not trusting their livelihood with this big decision on like an AI hallucination. So that's why it makes it even more important that we're filling the gap of being the ones that bring them confidence. All right, so now this is my new here. It's showing up. There we go. This is my new term. I made it up because I do hokey things like this. Heartset. So we always talk about mindset, like I just was, but there's something more important, I feel, in sales. It's more important than your mindset, and it's different. I can't categorize it as the same as mindset. And what it really is, it's your heart set, like where you set your heart when you're going to go sell. And this, like, I can probably see people out there shaking their head, woo woo, she's gone into Oprah era. No, not true. We're all in the woo woo era of humanity, because this is the thing that people are starving for. Okay, so it is the part of you that is like your identity of wanting to serve, essentially. Right, let me give you a little bit more about that. The phrase I love to use is benevolent intent. And what that means is that you have a genuine desire to help your buyer succeed. And I caveat that with what the buyer perceives as successful, not you, because you might have a different definition of what success is. But always going in with that mindset now, or with that heart set. Now, what you can think is, like, if you don't have this, buyers can smell it now, right? If you go in either with a lack of heart set or your heart's kind of set on your commission check, buyers will know, because that are things that anybody could do, right? And they don't want the people that are there to try to sell them. They very explicitly want people that can help them make the best decision that they can be confident about, right? So this, I cannot say how important this is. Um, in fact, one of the things I always say in early on when I start meeting with sales teams that I'm going to train is, if you can't find it in your heart to genuinely want to go in and help that buyer be successful, A, you're not long for the world of sales. And B, please just stop, because the rest of us are going to struggle when you're setting that kind of an example. And it's not to be rude, it's actually a fact. And the change toward more human, the needs for more humanity in the sales process because of the buyers, that's going to make it even more real. All right, make sure there's no questions. And then last but not, I can't resist, like, Heartset is at the heart of human to human sales acumen, because I couldn't work any additional H's in there. But in seriousness, it is like, this is the thing. You have to get this right if you're even going to start having a conversation about learning human to human sales skills. So get right with this. There was a song a long time ago, I'll date myself, by woman called Lauren Hill, and it always rings in my head when I talk about this. There's a line in there that says, "How are you going to win if you ain't right within?" When I talk about this is exactly what I think. Like, you're not going to win if you don't get this inside heart stuff right. You won't win, because that is the thing that's missing that machines can't do at their core. And by the way, it's kind of hilarious when they try to fake it. All right, any questions on that? That's a lot. David, yes, amen. It is a lost art, and hence my locking myself away for 6 months to build this, because it's lost, and it's the thing, right? It's the thing that's going to help salespeople get through this evolutionary stage where, they're kind of changing how they've done things and need to now get more human oriented if they weren't already. Yeah, love that. Thank you. Okay, so next thing is mindset. Now, this one y'all are going to be familiar with, but again, throughout this content that I share with you, this is not going to be like the general definition. It's going to be what I have stewed on and talked to people about and distilled again for you on what it really needs to look like in the context of the need to bring humanity to the sales process. And here's what it is. So it is deliberate. That's a key word in here. And I say sales specific because it's going to look different for different domains and different things you're talking about. It's a mental model. It's your thought process, like almost like a framework, and your beliefs that are aligned with the heart set, because I said that one first. Everything grows out of that. And ultimately, how well you prepare your mind and how well you set your mind to the art of selling, that is how your skills will go, right? If you're not all in your mind, if you're not all in on getting good at sales and being a lifelong learner, it'll be an uphill battle. I mean, could you do it? Sure. But it's an uphill battle. So that's why mindset is really, really important. And so what I talk about in mindset are these three things: clarity, curiosity, and conviction. I know I like alliteration. So again, distilled from a lot. Clarity to me is a couple of things. One, having the ability to look at things objectively that are going on in all your buyer interactions, internal interactions, not looking at them through that rose-colored glasses lens, which, this is like one of the only times I'll tell you not to have a positive outlook deliberately all the time. You got to be thoughtful about it, and you have to have clarity so that you can make the right calls as you go through your sales process. So clarity to me is one, clarity of just what you're going to talk about, right? So your product, the things that you want to talk about, value. But two, objectively looking at what is going on and being able to make a good call because it's not colored with some other emotion that you're having. Curiosity, this one's kind of interesting, so you'll see in a minute, but curiosity is going to be in two places. One, mindset. So curiosity is exactly what it says. It's a state of mind where you just want to learn, you want to know. Now, a lot of people are just born with this, but absolutely it can be taught, right? You can learn this skill, reminding yourself to ask more questions. That part, the curiosity that we'll talk about later in this content series, that's going to be one of the skill sets. So in this content I've created in the human-to-human sales acumen model, it's twice. Once in mindset, and then once in actually executing on that curiosity mindset. More on that next time. Then last, but almost most important to me, is conviction. I cannot tell you the amount of times I've gone in. I was training, I can say it now. I was training a group of enterprise sellers at TikTok. And this is back before there was major drama with TikTok. TikTok is out there changing culture. They're selling ads for TikTok, but they were down on themselves and not having the conviction in what they were selling because they weren't making the time to really interact with it in a way that how their buyers would. And so I just got all in on this soapbox. Like, if you can't go in there with conviction that this tool is going to change the way that that business operates, because it absolutely will, at least at that time, that was very true, then your buyer will sense something like that, right? You have to be able to stand on business for the things that you're going in there to sell them, right? And so you have to believe in that product. And sometimes maybe if you don't right off the bat, you got to figure out how to make yourself, because that's pretty transparent pretty quickly. You have to believe in yourself. So also conviction is confidence on steroids. It's like not just confidence in, I can do this, I got this. It's just deep-seated confidence that because you have the right heart set, right? You're going in there with benevolent intent, and you want to give your buyer what they need to make a decision that they can be confident about. You can have that conviction in who you are and what you're bringing to the table for your buyers, which is very important. And they'll be able to tell this. Like if they see you being wishy-washy about something, they'll be wishy-washy about it, which is the last thing you want. All right, questions? That was a lot. All right, so start thinking about Heartset and mindset in your day-to-day. I think that's the best thing that I can ask you to do right now. So as you know, this is the live series is kind of just me talking about the model and giving you a little idea of what it is. And then ultimately the deep dive on all of this is in my boot camp, my Human-to-Human Sales Acumen boot camp, which is a first cohort that'll start in September. More on that later with the QR code, but I'm not digging in very deep in these 30-minute lives, but I want you to at least understand the concepts. So if you have questions, let me know. All right, so here's my little image of this. I was gonna go with a tree, right? But it felt even hokey for me. I shouldn't have said that because maybe I will end up using the tree, but here we are. Okay. I have not yet introduced skill sets to y'all. So everything I've talked about so far takes us through this mindset. Skill set is the outcome, right? It's what you're able to do. It's actually the input and the outcome of what you're able to do when you have the right heart set and mindset. These are the human-to-human sales skills that are moving the needle for salespeople today and helping meet the buyer's needs. So recognize buyers, which is the first one that we'll talk about. That's next week. This is not personality test because that's a whole soapbox I have. I'm not going to hand you a disc and expect you to understand how that works. I've picked out the few friendly buyers in your neighborhood that you see in the sales hood, the most prevalent ones, and I've built them out so that you can get a feel for how they're going to behave or react typically across a few different dimensions. So in other words, like communication style, right? Like depending on who the buyer persona is that I talked to you about, buyer archetype, they're going to have a different approach to both receiving communication and giving communication. And we'll talk a lot in the bootcamp. We talk a lot about that in context. And then also as we go through the live, I'll bring a little bit more to that. Curiosity, I already gave you a spoiler alert there. This is the act of being curious, going out there and doing the things that are feeding that curiosity. So questions, which is, I think, the fourth session that we have, which is attuned listening and curiosity, which there's attuned listening. So those are kind of like a BOGO, right? It would not make any sense to do curiosity and then have that a separate one for attuned listening. They're together, they work together because you can be the best at asking questions, the best at showing how curious and interested you are. But if you don't hear what that buyer says, it was all useless. It doesn't matter if you don't hear them. That's what they're after. That's what they really want. All right. So any questions? I'm just checking. Oh, look at this. Thanks, Michael. Do you have a ratio in mind for this? So I missed when you wrote that, Lupe. So if you just pop back in and tell me, I'm trying to think of which ratio you're after, right? But to me, Heartset is oversized. Like that's it. That's the core. That's the foundation. In my hokey tree metaphor, it was the roots. Like you cannot pass go. You cannot touch the world of human-to-human sales acumen if you can't get right with that. Maybe I shouldn't say cannot. You could, but you're not going to be good at it, and you're going to make a lot of people miserable along the way. So that's the most important. It's a baseline. And then mindset is something you're carrying around all the time. So I don't know if I could put a ratio to that, but I'm sorry I missed what you were asking. So if you ask it again, I'll answer at that point. All right, critical thinking. So this one, if you've been doing any reading about like from Davos or the World Economic Forum or pretty much any magazine or online content that you see, it's all about critical thinking is a skill that human beings need to bring because machines can't do it. That is a fact. But critical thinking is one of those phrases where it's kind of like, does anybody really know what that means? Well, we're going to have a working definition and it's going to be based on real life sales, what's happening and how in the sales process and where you can apply critical thinking and what the benefit is of doing that. So that's what that topic is about. But really, critical thinking, it lands you at judgment. And machines they don't have judgment, right? They're never gonna, you could even ask the machine, which by the way, I've tried. You could ask AI and say, hey, what do I do? What should I decide? It's not going to tell you. It'll give you some information, but it can't tell you. And it can't tell you from, 10 years of experience selling to people like you or talking to people like you. Okay. And last but not least, advocacy. So this one was tricky for me because part of me wanted to make it like the outcome, but it's actually not. It is a skill that you have to practice and hone. If you do all the things that we just talked about right, you will naturally become an advocate for your customer. We've heard like, what is it, trusted advisor? I've almost blocked it on my brain. We've heard trusted advisor for, I want to say, even decades at this point. And it's not enough. Trusted advisor is table stakes. Um, if you can't be trusted, you're not going to last long anyway in the world of sales and B2B especially. So this is the next level up. This is advocate. This is where they don't just trust you to give them information. They trust that you're in their corner. And so they will take the guidance with you and they'll get you more involved. And the thing that I found that's most interesting about this is as you build advocacy, your buyers are all of a sudden going to start sharing things with you that are like their internal organizational dysfunction and dynamics. And that's not what they're giving to other vendors, right? You've earned the right to that because you've gone through and been really good about the rest of the skills and interacting with them in that human to human way. Advocacy is beyond powerful because it's the thing that doesn't just help you win a deal. Advocacy, and I know this even from personal experience, is the thing that creates customers for life, right? Because if I'm a buyer, if I'm at this company today and I go to another company tomorrow, and I know that the salesperson I worked with there had my back and helped me look awesome in front of my leaders and this committee that I had to present to, that's one of the first calls I'm going to make when it comes to that purchase, right? So it's about being a person that they can have in their corner. And it's still trust, but it's just like a deeper level of trust where you're given more insight into how their world works. All right, no questions? All right, seriously, no questions? That's a lot. I just throw it at you. All right, cool. So we'll move on. Da, 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 da. This one. So one of my favorite things when I talk to sales leaders and ask them to tell me about their sales team, one way, shape, or form, self-awareness comes up, right? Like they don't have self-awareness. They don't know what the buyers are seeing. Some variation of that. No one actually has a clear definition. And I don't know that I have a perfect definition, but I have the definition that you can use within the context of B2B sales, right? And that is, it's the ability to look at yourself, understand yourself in the context of sales and selling, and take that and create change, almost like evolution, right? Like you have to constantly be vigilant about how you're showing up and what you're thinking. If you don't, then you'll never even know if you have human to human sales acumen, right? Because who's checking? Unless you have somebody who's sitting in on all the calls with you, right? And then there we go. I'm just going to build this out. Okay, cool. So required, right? You have to have self-awareness or else you won't even know if you're doing any of these things. It just doesn't work. Um, Self-awareness is a lot of things. There's many components to it, and there's no universe where I can get through that in one LinkedIn Live. But what I can tell you is the most important part of that is this awareness of how you're showing up, your physical presence, your body language, your tone, and ultimately having the ability to think through and recognize how your buyer is perceiving you. And that goes into like metacognition, which is thinking about your thinking. There's a bunch of that is in the boot camp itself. But what you need to know right now for your purposes is that self-awareness is a skill that involves everything about how you're showing up in that sales conversation, by the way, internally too, but for our purposes in your customer sales conversations, you have to be on top of it. And I can tell you one of the things that I like to say for this is I used to say just for buyers. I used to tell salespeople that before you go in to meet with a buyer, sit down and ask yourself, if you're not going to prepare otherwise, sit down and ask yourself, what do I need them, like, what do I need them to know? What do I need them to do? And what do I need them to feel? Right. And that's a beautiful recipe, right? It totally helps get your head on straight and you can go in and kill a meeting. But over time, I realized that that's actually something that you have to do for yourself as a sales professional as well, to help improve the self-awareness muscle. So before you even have that meeting, ask yourself, all right, what do I need to know to bring into this meeting? What do I need to do in this meeting? Like, what are those steps? What do I need to achieve? And what do I need to feel? Now here, this is not woo-woo, this is fact. Like if you're going in there with like the weight of the world on your shoulders, it'll come out, it'll kill your conviction. It just ends badly. So if you take just that few moments to check on yourself and how you're feeling, change it and get it to where it needs to be to facilitate the sale, you'll be way better. The one that I always see that is heartbreaking is when a sales professional, me too, goes in because they get their number and like you're desperate, right? So you're making decisions based on desperation. That is never a good thing to do. And so I'm going to use me, if I think about that in advance and take that noise out, then I'm actually able to go in and focus on that conversation. And again, back to that benevolent intent. I'm here to figure out what you need and help you get there. And the product solution, whatever I'm selling, there'll be a signature on a contract if I do all that, right? And that's a leap of faith, by the way. It's not lost on me. But there's a lot of data now that's showing us that that's the humanity part that that buyers are craving. And then the awareness triggers action and adaptation. Once you get that awareness, now you can do the thing that needs to happen that you're evolving and you're adapting, right? Because that's what we have to do in sales, especially with all the technologies. We've got to constantly evolve who we are and how we go to market if we're going to continue to differentiate. So I'm looking at the time, if I have time for a quick story. Okay, I'm going to tell you it. So I'm an embedded coach. So I get to go in on sales calls with sales professionals sometimes, right? And so there was this one time I was going with a tech sales professional. I think it was like managed services, something of that nature. And we were selling to a CIO, which yay him, he got right to the C-suite. We get to the meeting and the CIO has his IT director in there, which is not unusual. So my sales professional, my with love, goes in and is just like doing really well, making eye contact with that customer, that CIO, asking good questions, all of the things. However, he doesn't ever stop long enough to recognize that the director over here is like looking at him with disdain because he's not even having a conversation with him. Is it like just focused on the CIO? Which, by the way, I don't think that that's really the salesperson's fault most of the time because that's what we teach them. We teach ourselves that, oh my God, you got to go talk to the economic buyer, the person who's going to sign, da, da, da. Sure, maybe, right? Every context is different. To act like there's a one size fits all for anything like that is just foolishness. And you'll have to trust me on that one, a lot of years. But he couldn't tell. And also, he could not see that this face, as you can tell, does not play poker, could not see me glaring, being like, yo, look over here. And so obviously that car ride home was not joyful for him, but he figured out what happened. He thought through it. He tried to figure out what he was thinking, which is exactly what I just said. He was thinking that, yay, I'm here. I've got this. This is the person that's going to sign. The CIO was deferring to the director multiple times. So anyway, that's one of the best examples I have of someone not having the self-awareness, by the way, also the situational awareness to recognize that the path that they're going down is not serving the audience that they're meeting with, right? Which in our case is buyers. All right, we're almost done. At the end of the day, the outcome, so I just gave you a lot, and I'd be lying if I said it was easy. This is one of those journeys to build human-to-human sales acumen that does take work, but it's worth it because it's also the only way that you're going to be very successful in sales going forward. And that's why I keep on saying things like future ready, because I mean it. Very true. There will be no lack of conviction on my part about how humanity is going to be the differentiator, which I did say in 2019 in my book, but I digress. You will earn the right to influence that buyer's decision. Now, this is not go influence them to buy from me, right? Even if that's not the right thing, but they will look to you for more influence and insight because you will understand the context because of how much you've served them throughout, right? That's a function of like trust. It's a function of credibility. All those things come together. And that really only happens if you get all, or at least most of those skills that I distilled out in play, that this is a natural outcome. And again, customers for life. So when you look at human-to-human sales acumen, it is a very specific journey that there's some things that are non-negotiable, right? Like Heartset, mindset, non-negotiable. Can the skill sets switch around depending on your contest? Absolutely, right? Like if I go sell to manufacturer, there might be a different one in there, right? Depending on who they're selling to. So like for everything else, there isn't a one size fits all, but by and large, if you take a look at the skill sets that I pulled here, you're going to get results with those because they're proven over a long time. So I will pause for a minute, see if anybody has any questions, since I'm just talking to myself. I got to find a different way to do these. All right, there we go. Okay, so last but not least, QR code. I'm going to stay on. By the way, I'll stay on for a few minutes afterwards, just so that we can, if you have questions or you didn't get a chance to ask them, we can talk if there's something that you want some help on. But for those of you, we're just wrapping up. I'm saying thank you very much. Here's a QR code. Share your feedback about today. I'm actually really interested in, if you have the time, I'd appreciate it. Like, are you somebody who really likes to have the slides as you go through it? Or are you good and will you learn as much when you're just looking at a face? I go back and forth with this, so it's always good to refresh what's happening out there. So if you could do that for me, I would really appreciate it. It'll only make me better. I've got the schedule for all the LinkedIn Lives, which now are tied to the different skills that we talked about for human-to-human sales acumen. You can learn about the boot camp. You can learn about how to sign up for the boot camp. It's actually apply. It's not a sign up thing. You have to apply because I have to make sure that I get the right mix of people so that you can also learn from each other. And I'm only having 15 people in this because human to human, I got to be able to get to know everyone in it. So you can take a look and learn more about that. But otherwise, I've just created the event for next week, which is our identifying and understanding buyers, like recognizing buyers in your sales hood. Click on that, go ahead and register. I would love to see you there. And then other than that, just thank you so much. Like I swear at some point in life, I am going to get really good at this technology. And by the way, it was working an hour ago.